Any questions?
How do you get to access all these data which you are looking for?
So most of the data that I spoke about is available publicly or it's semi-public information, right? So the World Wide Web and Wikipedia are available publicly. Twitter is available. You just have to go to Twitter and there's an API to access it. Facebook, well, there are ways to create Facebook apps that people install and give you permission to use their data, right? So there are ways to get access to this data if you're prepared to work for it. Yeah. Yep.
How do you manage computational complexity in your work?
Yeah, so basically when you have data of a huge size, anything that's more than n log n you can't do, right? So basically you can throw out any algorithm that's worse than n log n. You have to take any algorithm and try to do it in n log n, pretty much. You can do sorts. That's about it. And that's how if you think about MapReduce, which is kind of the paradigm that's used for doing a lot of this big data analysis, it uses basically an n log n kind of approach. All it does is a sort and a merge. Right, so.
I have a question on the social sciences. We said that, okay, we're going to take people based on what they like, dislike on Facebook. Now, what if I change my mind tomorrow?
Sure.
How do you take that? Like, I like vanilla ice cream. Okay. Tomorrow, I like strawberry.
Yeah.
Then what? Then how do you actually incorporate the fact that people change?
Of course, yeah, and I think that's a key, not just people, but anything that we model changes, right? And that's why we have to build very simple models that also change as fast as people change. For example, until a certain point, I might think that you like vanilla ice cream, but then when I get data that you stopped having vanilla ice cream, my model has to adapt really quickly, right? And sort of not stop recommending you vanilla ice cream. If I have a very complex model, it may not change fast enough. But if I have a simple model that just looks at your past, let's say past 2 purchases or something like that, then I'll know very quickly that you don't, that you've changed, right? So I'm using a very, very, very simple way of saying this, but in general, if you have a simple model, it can change much faster than a more complex model.
How legally you could manage that big data?
Sorry?
People have generally concerned about the privacy and all.
Privacy.
Right.
Yeah.
How legally you can manage have protected data?
Yeah, so privacy is always something that comes up. But one of the interesting things we've observed is that there's a trade-off between privacy and convenience. And people have always been, people have by and large been willing to trade off privacy for convenience. Right? People want something to be done conveniently. They'll give you their data and they'll trust you, right? I mean, this is what's been happening for the last several years. And clearly, there have been abuses of this, and there will be a backlash, and then there will be some sort of reality that comes afterwards. But by and large, in the world, what we've observed is that people are willing to trade a little bit of privacy for a lot of convenience. Yeah.
Paradigm for control or validation. Like say for example, when you say these are the places where people are talking about Takis.
Yeah.
It does not mean that people at other places don't like Takis.
Sure.
It does not mean about it.
Yeah.
So is there some way where this particular case is even?
Sure. That's a very valid question. You have to look at the question is that this relates to the Takis example, and I showed you a map with the heat map of where people are tweeting about Takis. So you have to be very careful. You have to adjust it for the background level of overall tweets in that region in general, right? So if people in a particular place tweet, infrequently, just even 1 or 2 mentions of Takis may be a lot. Whereas in a region where people tweet already a lot, then they may have, they have to mention Takis a lot more. You have to adjust a heat map like that for the background level, or the it's like a background radiation at some level. You have to adjust for that.
So you already have your sales figure with you. So won't those sales figures help you in finding out across the geography where Takis is being sold more, rather than taking the pain and finding out across through Twitter and Facebook?
Yes, sales figure. The question is, can you use sales figure instead of using to find out geographic distribution of sales, rather than using Twitter as we had done? And the answer is yes. Sales figures would help. if you actually had a product that had been selling for a long time and you had historical sales. The problem with Taki is it's a new product. We have not yet introduced it in the stores, right? We don't want to waste a lot of time introducing it in a lot of stores where it's not going to sell. How do you find out where a product that you have not yet introduced into stores is going to sell?
Kind of predictive analysis.
Exactly. So that's what this is about.
So as a follow-up to his question, you were talking about us being able to predict human beings, which would be a revolution in the social sciences in the future. So do you believe that ethical concerns are not a challenge to the availability of data, which is really important for data analysis to predict human beings?
No, I do think that ethical concerns are hugely important and will be addressed, right? I don't know exactly how they will be addressed. Right now, the way we have seems to be that you create these apps and people give people give permission to apps to use their data on Facebook, for instance. Maybe that's a regime that will continue. Maybe there'll be a new regime, I don't know. But I think ethical concerns are huge. I mean, perhaps an analogy is, is to medical trials of drugs, right? You have to get people's informed consent before testing new drugs on them. I don't think I'll go as far as that because you're not testing, life-threatening drugs on people. But somewhere in that, that's kind of an analogy, but it's somewhere in that direction.
What's the cost involved in acquiring this kind of data?
Cost involved in acquiring data. The cost involved in acquiring data is not very high, but the cost involved in analyzing large amounts of data could be large because you need a computing infrastructure to analyze. The good thing, the interesting thing that's happening in the world is that the cost of computing infrastructure is coming down because you don't need to buy it. You can rent it on places like Amazon Web Services. You can go rent infrastructure in the cloud, and you can only pay for what you use, right? You can pay, a penny per compute hour or something like this, and so you can just get these large server farms in the cloud, which you use and then you throw away, right? I mean, you just pay for what you use. So the cost of analyzing large amounts of data is coming down because of things like cloud. Somebody else, yeah.
Hello, sir. The discussion in this session was all concentrating on countries where there are more internet users. But coming to India, only 15% of the whole population are actually internet users.
Yeah.
How do we analyze the markets here? Like you have done it for the American markets.
Yeah. That's a very good question, and I'm to be honest, I don't know, right? And I'm sort of assuming that if the trajectory is that internet use and mobile penetration are increasing in India, and more phones, I would imagine, will become smartphones as the replacement cycle goes on. We're already seeing these cheap smartphones coming into the Indian market. So as the replacement cycle goes on, I think more and more people will go for smartphones, and there will be more internet penetration in India. So perhaps all this stuff that I'm saying may be relevant a couple of years from now, right, rather than now. Yeah.
My question is with regard to the reliability of public data. See, once upon a time it was all private data, so it was a very reliable source where you can do your analysis.
Right.
But when you go for larger and larger data sets that are public in nature, how well can you rely on data from, say, Twitter or Facebook to make your decisions?
Sure, it's a good question. How reliable is data from public sources like Twitter or Facebook, right? The simple analogy is to also ask the question, how reliable is data on the web, right? Somebody put some data on the web, do you believe it? No, data on the web is not reliable either. However, we use the web every day. We search Google every day and we use information from Google every day. Why do we use it? Well, because there are algorithms that figure out which data is more reliable and which data is repeated more often and which data is authoritative because people link to it. There is a whole bunch of algorithms that go on to behind the scenes to help you figure out what is more reliable and what is less reliable. The good thing is that if you start with a lot of data, there's more likely to be more reliable data in there as well. You just have to find the algorithmic signals to separate the reliable data from the unreliable data. So if I understand the question, you're saying as the amount of data increases, you run out of memory in your computers. How do you analyze data? I think it's a simple question, but a profound question at the same time. So a lot of the algorithms that have been designed actually are what I'll call main memory algorithms. They actually run in the main, they rely on data being in the main memory of computers. But the new algorithms for analyzing big data are not dependent on main memory. They use a disk. And they just pull in a little bit of data at a time, and they do their analysis. So you can actually analyze large data sets. You only need small amounts of memory because you only bring in a small amount of data into memory at any point in time. Disk is cheap, much cheaper than memory. You can put terabytes and petabytes of disk, and you can just pull in a small amount at a time. That's how it's done. And you use parallel processing with large numbers of nodes.
As the social media is getting paid, in Twitter you can boost up your trends, and Facebook also you can boost up your trends. Then similarly, how reliable, like a opposing company which is not doing this thing, but they are boosting up their promotion, their trends using this thing, then how do you correlate with that thing? Like whether it is a boosted data which makes the trend, or it is over a period of time?
No, that's a completely fair question, right? And I think the answer is once again that people are working on algorithms to figure out whether spikes, this is called spike detection, whether spikes are anomalies that are caused by one-time events, or are they part of long-term trends, right? And this is once again an algorithmic challenge that people are working on. Some people here in the computer science department may be working on it. Okay, we're done? Okay. Cool. Thanks. Thank you. We should keep it like this.